Well, hey there, sweet peas. Welcome back to Friendless. I'm your host, James Avramenko, and today I am so excited to be sitting down with the one, the only, Trevor Hinton. Trevor is an actor, a father, a philosopher, and someone who, admittedly, I was more than a little terrified of for most of the time I've known him. We take a deep look into vulnerability, artistic expression, and the raw authenticity that comes from truly seeing each other. It was incredible reconnecting with Trevor, and you're going to love this one. So lean back, get comfy, set your volume at a reasonable level, and enjoy my interview with Trevor Hinton here on Friendless. This week, I have a long lost friend from the halcyon days, as I've described them in the past, of UVic, a man who, admittedly, I spent a lot of my school years terrified of, which I'm sure we'll get into as the conversation goes. But with me today, the man, the legend, Trevor Hinton.
Hello.
This is
silly.
This is a long time coming. You know,
Okay.
I've been trying to get you on the show for, is it 2 years now that we've been playing telephone tag?
Likely. Time just flies. So yes, it's probably 2 years. Yeah.
Unbelievable. And I don't know when the last I guess the last time we saw each other would have been when you swung through Saskatoon years ago. But before then, really not since university. It's been pushing on 15 years.
It's true. But with the social media world, I feel like
Yes.
I've seen plenty of you, but it's not true. Not in reality.
And that's one of those funny things. I always feel really weird about what I heard once it described, no one's a bigger stranger than me online 3 years ago. You know, like in terms of the idea of like you look back on what you posted and what you said and how you talked and all these things, and it just feels alien to you. It's like unrecognizable. And I feel like, over the years of doing the show, I've put out such a cornucopia of my mental health journey and my ups and my downs, and it's weird to think that people have this sort of narrative. I'd be really curious, what is the outside narrative of of James Avramenko from the outside perspective? Am I doing okay?
Oh man. Well, I think you're from what I've observed and my own take on it. I think it's wonderful. I think what you're sharing with people that you know to some degree, right? The 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 very human, very common, of course, particular to you, but also, the thing with vulnerable pain and difficulty is that it is so specific to you and your experience, but it
Sure.
is so common
Yes.
that it's completely understandable. And so,
Yeah.
honestly, when I've observed some of through what you've written and shared, I'm like, oh yeah, and it makes me think about my experience of whatever that
Yeah.
is, or like, oh wow, and my curiosity. If it's something I don't know about,
Yeah.
then it's like, well, because I have connected with so much of what you've said otherwise,
Mhm.
I mean, of course, that is also available, and I wonder what that is and what that's like, and
Sure.
and it makes me think, and then it comes up somewhere else, right? Of course, because as
Yep.
soon as something's on your radar, it shows
It's
up
yep.
because you because you notice. Yeah,
Yep.
you can
Yep.
name it, and therefore it exists suddenly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that. That's really reassuring because I definitely feel like sometimes I'm an overshare, you know?
Yeah, me too.
But okay, but here, let's pump the brakes. This interview isn't about me. This is about you. Let's get things started with the question I always ask all my guests at the beginning. Put very simply, Trevor Hinton, who the fuck are you?
I am a strange alien, and I completely love that and accept that. I'm just I'm a dude doing the human experience, and fallibly, and I get to be a part of this thing. That sounds so philosophical, but that's really what it is. It's just
Yeah.
like I'm just I'm a dad.
Yeah.
And that's amazing. I try to be a good friend, and I try to be a responsible man in the
Yeah.
world.
Yeah.
And I like getting in the way of bullshit
Yeah.
when it comes my way, and I try not to shrink from that.
Yeah.
Um, to again various degrees of success.
Hey, it's all our first try, you know?
Yeah, yeah, maybe, yeah. And I try to be a good, a good neighbor and a good whatever,
Mhm.
and to explore.
Yeah. So as I briefly touched on at the very beginning, and I'd like to hear a lot more of, or as much as you'd like to share. Obviously we crossed over through theater school, and I'm really curious about. First of all, are you still kind of involved in the theater world? Are you still acting? Are you still a part of that?
Oh, theater is my fickle mistress, and I love her. That
Yeah. Yeah.
dirty, 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 wonderful, wonderful mistress she is. Yeah, yeah, oh yeah. I mean, acting's my thing. So
Yeah.
you know, it's easy to wear a lot of hats and too many hats. And
Hmm.
I walked away from acting for a time,
Hmm.
and really, it just felt like I was holding my breath. I can do
Mm.
lots of things, sure, right, and there's value in them,
Yep.
and they're wonderful. But I'm not. The feedback is limited, and the
Yeah.
ceiling is low. As far
Yep.
in terms of what I want to do and like
Yep.
and what I want out of life. Um, I just feel like I can never fill what acting demands
Yeah.
and what's possible, and it's also so easy at the same time. So
Hmm.
it's about hard discipline and focus, and then just chilling the fuck out and
Yeah.
getting out of the way. And that's
Yeah.
a process that I can never ever tire of.
Yeah. I'm really relieved to know that you're still acting.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't totally sure. And um I'm really curious. So one of the funny things, this is gonna be a little I think this is gonna be a little bit of a circular conversation, because there's things that like I almost have to touch on and then go back. But because you were this like towering presence at UVic. You were so
Wow.
skilled, and you were really intimidating, and I know this wasn't like, I know on reflection, and especially in speaking to you after, how that was like such a me problem in a lot of ways. You know what I mean? Like I was making myself intimidated by you,
Mhm.
and I remember the very last day, like that you graduated, the year you graduated. We were all hanging out at a friend of ours' place, and you told the story of why you went to theater school. And it was like the first time we'd ever really had like a long, in-depth conversation. And I remember just being like, oh fuck, I just missed out on 3 years of like this fascinating man, and now he's gone.
Oh, that's kind.
And and I'd be really curious if you would tell the 15 years later version of what got you into acting, and what brought you to how did you end up at UVic?
Oh, sure. Okay. Well, this whatever. There are many little tributaries from why and how, but I was pursuing other things. I was really. I was going into medicine was the idea, and it was
Wow.
going fine. But I was kind of bored
Hmm.
because in the classroom settings, it's just facts
Yeah.
and memorizing those facts and then giving them back. And
Hmm.
fine. I mean, that's often what a classroom setting can be. I mean, these days it sure is. But
Sure.
um, actually, I don't even know what they're like these days. I'm intimidated by these days. You have to
Yeah,
have
they're
so many
terrifying.
toys to go
Yep.
to a basic class. I never even used a notebook. I haven't written a note since high school. I've done 8 years of university. Anyway,
Yeah.
but now
Yeah.
you need all these gadgets just to show up the fucking class. Pardon my language. Okay, off track.
Lay it in,
Let's
lay it
see.
in. Yeah.
So I'm doing that. I have friends who I was in high school with who were acting. I noticed I was feeling jealous about what they're doing. And these are friends I have deep respect for,
Yeah.
who are extremely intelligent, passionate,
Yeah.
able, with with social fluidity just coming out of every pore, right? So they could do anything, and they're doing this, and I'm like, well, that's nice. Oh, I could do that.
You're right. Yeah.
One day I could do that. And then I'm doing my thing, and then I'm like, what the fuck is going on? So I went traveling, and I was backpacking and all this stuff. And I had a moment of absolute clarity that is unshakable. So it was just like hammered into my mind in one moment.
Yeah.
And when that happens, you shut up and you do it.
Yeah.
And it felt completely correct. And I was like, and as soon as I shared this, because to me that was like, it was a revelation. And so as soon as I shared it with anybody that was close to me, they're like, oh yeah, good. So I'm like, okay, well, I'll go. And then I didn't know what an audition was. I've never held a script really. I mean, other than like a high school play type thing. But I didn't even remember it was called a script. So my dear friend, Jay Hindle, was at UVic at the time. And I'm like, well, I guess I know that place. So I'll try that. And so I went and I auditioned, and it fit like a glove.
Yeah. That's amazing. I love that. I when I hear stories about people who like yourself, who have these moments of just like utter confidence, right? And maybe it's not, maybe it doesn't necessarily feel like confidence in the moment, but on reflection, it's like just to have that clarity of mind of like, this is what I do next, right?
Oh God. It was on a beach. I should tell you, I was on a beach in Thailand when this moment arrived, and I'm walking down the beach, and was it Indonesia? Oh, it's Thailand. Yeah, and there's a monkey in a tree, and it's just me on this beach and this monkey, and I look up at the monkey, and the monkey and I make eye contact, and the freaking download happened in that instant. And I don't know how much the monkey had to do with it, but it was just, this is exactly how it happened. I was walking, I look up, monkey, eye contact, information, and suddenly my life changed. My direction changed. And like, that's insane.
It's amazing.
But it was perfectly clear, right?
Yeah.
And so what do? You want inspiration and direction in a package exactly as you've imagined it, or do you take it as it comes and go? Well, I went, right? And that has been nothing but rewarding. Every wonderful relationship that is currently really not every, but most, every important relationship in my life has come from that decision at that moment. That was unexpected and a complete redirect. So,
I mean, I love it. I was really hoping because I remember you telling the story of the monkey years ago, and I didn't want to prompt it. I was really hoping you were going to tell it on the show, because I love it. I love it, and I literally I think about it all the time, because I'm just like, I believe, like, obviously I believe it in the sense that, like, I why would you lie? But also I believe it in the deeper sense of like, I just think that's like those little moments of magic that sometimes come along, like you got to buy in, and I just think I think that's what it is. I think it's just pure magic. And I'm not a religious person, but I feel like that's the closest thing to like being touched by God, like or like you lived in a Disney movie for a moment, like like it's amazing.
I think that's the greater reality, actually.
Yeah, exactly.
And that we're so, well, I can only speak for myself. I try so hard to to be responsible, and to be because I love this. I love people. I love being part of this community and everything. But the more that I try to really be a part of it, and be predictable, and be easily understood, the more I feel I distance from myself and from those moments that are readily available. And who knows what I have just turned a blind eye to, what inspiration, because I'm so busy trying to be on time.
Yes. Yes.
You know?
This has been something that's been really eating me up a lot lately, is this idea of like the sort of like the metaphysical versus the material, and the sort of the spiritual versus material, and more often, like I find like I find that there's these beautiful flashes of inspiration within pretty much all religions. They're all basically scratching at the same motif. They're all trying to figure out like there's something else here, and they've found different words for it. And then the problem is that then they become dogmatic, and they sort of force the spiritual into the material,
Yeah.
and I think it's kind of beyond that,
Well,
and I don't know how to find that, like, because we're trapped in this capitalist hellscape, right? Like, where these are the rules of the game, we have to play to survive.
but
And
that's the
it's so,
magic.
yeah, okay,
That's
okay. So
where
that's what I'm
that's where
curious.
everything
Yeah,
happens. We are
yeah.
physical beings and we're spiritual beings, and so
Hmm.
and in order to be in order to make something work, you have to show up. You have to be on
Yeah,
time, right?
right.
We have in order to bring this stuff into being, you need to be in the balance of the two. And so
Hmm.
they're opposite, but they are compatible. But it
Hmm.
requires a discipline and letting go. So the
Right.
letting go is letting things be there, and the
Yeah,
discipline is like, okay, now buckle down. And that's just the true pattern for everything you learn to do.
yeah,
Every basic thing that we
yeah,
do, cooking, tying your shoes, wiping your butt, getting up on, just
yeah,
all
yeah,
these basic things. It's all the same thing. But
yeah,
when it gets to some spirits, then it's like it's huge and it's
yeah,
wonderful and it's magnificent. You want to just do that. But
yeah.
when you do just that, you go nuts.
That's right. I mean, look at all the Shambhala Instagram influencers who are
Well,
all
then you
just
get into
like
drugs
insane.
because and
Yeah,
because that's the pursuit of mysticism. You're looking,
yeah,
and then you get a glimpse,
yep,
and then the window shuts, and then you
yes,
try to
yes,
get that glimpse again,
yeah,
and you can't. You just bump into the glass, and then the
yeah,
glass gets thicker, and
and
then you
it
get a
get
little peek,
yes,
and
yeah.
that's the evil fucking with you. So yeah.
Ginsberg, Allen Ginsberg, actually, because when he started out, he was a very big proponent of, he got kind of like lured into, obviously it was the 50s, so he was like trying weed, and he was like, whoa, right?
Yeah.
But over the years, over the decades of his career, he obviously got into more Buddhism and stuff like that. He also got into Nambla stuff, which I don't want to touch on right now, but he became problematic. But what he would talk
Did you
about,
say Nambla?
yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, he became not a great dude.
huh.
But if we can put that aside, which is such a problematic thing to say, but when he was talking about the spiritual, he said drugs are a shortcut that trick us into thinking we've touched the divine, and it's about finding ways to patiently get there, without you got to earn it, basically, right? Over the last couple of years, especially since getting sober, that's been, I've recognized how much of a distance there is between where I thought I was to where I actually am.
Okay, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Which is good. Which is not a bad thing. It's just, a seeing the actual reality, right?
It's the beautiful journey, man. Yeah,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
can't have the reward without the walk. You have to go
yeah.
through a lot
Mm-hmm.
in order. Well, we start off there, and then you make your way back. It's like it's weird. It's wonderful. It's perfect.
It is. It
It's
is.
perfect, and it's a bitch, and it's great.
So one of the sort of tentpole questions of the show is this idea of community, and I really love talking to theater people because I find the theater community to be such a funny little cosmology. It's like its own little bottle version of community as a whole, because it represents, all the good and all the ill that can come from society is
Mm.
distilled in theater. And so, starting with the question, for you, what does the word community mean? And then I'd like to kind of build out from there.
Okay. Well, um, for me, community is about a lot about responsibility,
Mm.
uh, because it's not just about me.
Hmm.
And I'm a part of a group, of a network
Yeah.
that is interconnected. So what I do matters.
Hmm.
But because there are so many people, what I do doesn't matter too much, right?
Sure.
Depending
Yeah.
on what I do,
Yeah.
of course. Yeah. So community. Okay. I've It's about learning to really to realize that you have a place and you have a voice, and be it, and not be an ass, right? And be accountable. I grew up in a small town where what you did was known, and who you are is known, and who your family are is known, right? And so there's never any escaping that. And that was a really great lesson. It's a great way to grow up, is where, okay, mind your manners, and be yourself, because you got something to give and you have some value. And if you don't, then you're just taking up space, which is really a disservice to you, right? Because you're more than that, and maybe you don't know that. And community can help you find that, unless you get into the wrong community who just wants to eat you. Right? And there's that. There are sub communities, and you got to pick the one that works for you. And often we pick the ones that give us the most immediate feedback. Something that you like, you want that, and I'll take that right now. I'll need another hit. I'll take another, right? And then eventually, it's not nourishing. So that's growing up.
How do you find? No, I think you're really onto something, and I think like listening to the way you're framing it is like wrinkling my brain, and I appreciate that. These are moments why I do the show, is to go, aha, right, exactly, and when it comes to the idea of like falling into the quote unquote wrong communities. So something I try to do through my therapy, I've been coached to try to eliminate good, bad, and instead look at effective, ineffective.
Nice.
Right. I love it. I love it
Thank
so much.
you. Yeah.
I don't always clock it. I don't know. It doesn't always happen, but when I hear it, I try. And so I'm curious, what is the idea behind an ineffective community? And how do you sort of like, from your experience, how would you go about kind of like clocking, is this an effective sort of network for me or not?
Well, what are you growing? How are you changing? Because change is constant. And and often these places, you're there for a reason at a time, right? And when it no longer feels like that reward is helpful, then it's time to move on. But usually that takes a while to figure out, and that's been my experience anyway. And then it's not necessarily that you need to entirely abandon that group, but that you need to branch out into others as well, and practice some non-attachment with the others, and then like step away, say hello, do something else.
It's almost like it's almost like the monkey bars in a way, right? Like, because it's like, like you're still attached to one while you're connecting to the next. Like you're not just dropping, and that's been another thing. I was just talking to somebody the other day about this idea of like, when you're you've got a bad job, say, we were talking about like, I'm stuck in my job, not me, myself, we're talking hypothetical. I'm stuck in my job. I hate it. I have no safety resources. I need this job to pay my rent, to pay my bills. I'm stuck, but I'm also trapped. And you tell this to your friend, and your friend says like, well, just get a new job, and it's like, well, why don't you go fuck yourself? Right. Because it's like, it's not that simple. Right. And I wish it could be, because it's like philosophically, yeah, obviously the solution is just get out. But it's like, there's also all these other parameters, and these other pressures going on. And I'm curious, like, how do you go about kind of navigating that sort of like tightrope walk behind those things?
Oh, I don't say I'm great at that. Because, so I'm not speaking as an authority on the matter. However,
none of us are.
No, I guess not. Well, some can, but they probably don't think they are either.
Right? Yeah, fair.
Yeah. Let's see. Repeat the question so I don't go off track.
Well, it's the idea of how do you find yourself balancing wanting or needing to move into new, whether communities or new places in life, while still being kind of trapped within the sort of daily systems you're already in.
Well, often it comes down, in my experience, to anger. It requires a big emotion to have that exit velocity, to suddenly make another choice, because fuck this,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And that's unfortunate because the opportunities often present themselves far earlier, and you
Right.
don't need the drama to get there.
Yeah.
And I think as one learns, right, or if they have a really good trusted network of others around them, they
Mhm.
say, "Hey, have you considered this?" Because that's
Mhm.
also happened in my life, where
Mhm.
someone's like, "I'm surprised you're doing this," and I'm like, "Oh, oh,
Yeah.
yeah," and then
Yeah.
I get out, right?
Yeah.
So it depends on the situation,
Yeah.
but yeah, it bothers me that I have to have a huge feeling before I'm really ready to move on with
Yeah.
something. But curiosity and like feeling like you can, if you have
Mm.
grown up or learned through your adulthood that you can,
Mhm.
and you are used to saying, hey, why not? This is mine too. I'm going
Yeah.
to do this. And you
Yeah.
just get into that habit, that beginner, that you're always in the beginner space, which is why I
Mhm.
love acting,
Yeah. Yeah.
because it
Yeah.
requires that mindset simply to function.
Yeah.
Then I can't get too into anything else. I just stay there and I stay curious and I
Yeah.
stay present, which is where all the power is. It is in
Yeah.
being present. And so if
Yeah.
you are able to be present in those moments, you can step out.
'Cause you'll see
And
it, right?
yeah, and
Yeah.
if you're not,
Yeah.
you're just on a replay. Then it
Mhm.
takes it. You require that pain. You need to
Mhm.
hit the fucking wall and
Mhm.
hurt and say, "Oh, come back to
Ow. Right?
consciousness through being knocked out."
Yeah,
Effectively.
yeah. Well, you're really clicking stuff into place in my brain of how, confidence and anger are in a lot of ways the two sides of the same coin,
Mm-hmm.
because the emotions themselves, right? No emotion is good or bad, and all emotions are tools to be put to use effectively or ineffectively, right? And
Mm.
so, more often than not, an uncomfortable emotion like anger gets used ineffectively because it then causes harm or whatever it might do. But the reality is anger is an incredible motivator, right? It gets you moving, it charges you up, it gets your body going, right? And that's the same thing that confidence can do. It's just that it happens earlier, so you're not at that like boiling point of needing to move. It's that you want to move, right?
Nice.
you know
Yeah.
um
Yeah. Nicely
yeah,
put. Yeah.
yeah,
Well, this is more of a personal thing. I don't
yeah,
like you were saying that you found me intimidating and scary, and like that was
yeah.
so. I had no interest in creating
Mhm.
that sort of vibe.
Yeah,
I really didn't, and I've heard you're not the only person who's ever said that.
sure.
Um, but I just wonder what that was like for you because
Mhm.
to me when I hear that
Mhm.
I feel like I must have been some like I fear I was a bully of some kind or
Mhm.
something, and
Sure.
hell no, that was definitely not what I was about or
Sure.
wanting. But that doesn't mean that's not what I was.
Yes. Intent
So
versus impact, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
I'm very curious about your experience, your
Yeah.
take on that. What was that for you?
Yeah, it's funny. This links into something I've been thinking a lot of for a couple of years actually. Really ever since you reached out about getting on the show, because you talked about how I had mentioned doing a play with you years ago, on a different show, and I went back and I listened, and I really regretted saying it on the show, and it wasn't because I regretted what I said. It was that I regretted not saying it to you,
Oh,
and not just talking to you about it instead of like projecting it, right? And I think that there's a lot of things that overlap with each other in that, like, I was a first year when you were a third or fourth year, so there was that like kind of like perceived gap. But there was also for me, it really boils down to it was just Richard the Third. You were really intense, when doing
probably.
when doing Richard the Third, and I was always I got cast as like your whipping boy several times, and I got like legitimately whipped several times, and that sucked. And there was no, it was 2006 or whatever, so it's not like there was like a safety coordinator. It was just like that whatever the director's name, Giles or whatever, just being like, maybe don't punch him in the balls next time, right?
That was about the extent of my direction from him
That's just
throughout the
that's just
entire
it, right?
film.
And this is the thing, and so like being in the moment, because you were closer to me in the moment, I thought it was you. But then as I stepped back and as I got further from it and as I reflected on it, I was like, oh no, no, we were both students.
both of us were not being treated safely because the person who was actually supposed to be in control wasn't, and wasn't directing us well, and wasn't directing us safely, and so over the years, I've definitely, like, it's now more become like a funny story of like, yeah, one time at improv, he was just really in the character, and he like just like full on, like, you like elbowed me in the nuts one time in
Did
rehearsal, and I
I?
like, oh yeah, and it like winded me, and I just like, and they like, the direction was like, yeah, don't do that.
I'm
And,
sorry.
it's
I'm
this is the thing,
sorry,
honestly.
James.
Trevor, like, honestly, this is the thing. I'm not bringing this up to shame you. Like, these are things that I don't bear any ill will about, and I don't carry any. Like I say, the thing that has lingered with me longer has been not talking to you about it, and instead like using it as like comedy fodder. You know what I mean? And the other piece is that because of that sort of that experience, I'm an anxious guy. I'm just an anxious dude in general, and I have been for years. I'm working on it. I'm, I'm getting better at it. But I mentioned that last time we hung out before you graduated, and it felt like you were like a different person, and I was like, oh, there's Trevor. I had been hanging out with Richard for
Yes.
for for 2 months, and like, here's Trevor, and this is like a totally different person. This is somebody who's down to earth, somebody who's philosophical, somebody who I can kind of, for lack of a better word, rap with. You know what I mean? Like, just
Totally.
kind of like spit with, right? And so it came as like a big like eye opener of like, oh, like, and I think my brain's bouncing around. I'm ADHD. I think it in a way it kind of soured me on theater a little bit,
Mm.
because it was like, I want to hang out with people. I don't want to hang out with people who are pretending to be other people,
Ah,
right? Like, I want to hang out with, I wanted to spend time with Trevor. I didn't want to spend time with Trevor pretending to be XYZ. You know what I
ah,
mean? Right?
yeah, I totally
Yeah.
understand that.
Yeah.
I find that's often I have some trouble with that. In that, when I'm doing a show, whatever it might be, my job is to invite and absorb and embody as much as possible of
Mm-hmm.
this other human being's experience,
Mm-hmm.
which is because I can perceive it. It's also me. So
Mm-hmm.
to bring that part of me to the foreground, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's work.
Yeah.
So, and we have so much time, only so much time.
Yeah.
And so, in that space where there are all of these wonderfully interesting people,
Mm-hmm.
I see all these other actors who've got, they got it down. They can totally do the role and they're really present. Not me.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm just like pulling it in as much as
Yeah.
I can and then letting it out in a controlled manner. And well, now it's more controlled than it was at that time.
It was
Um,
rehearsal. It was rehearsal.
I
Right?
would not hit anyone in the nuts today.
And you know what, James caught, from what I understand, I mean, I can't speak, but from what I understand, you were both safe through the whole big fight. So,
Oh, for sure.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that
So,
was just a moment of
yeah,
like, oh, I think I took off your hat and whapped you in the nuts with it. I think I remember that moment.
yeah, you
I
hit me in
remember
the
that one.
back one time. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, you're wearing your hat in front of the king.
yeah. That
Fuck
one hurt.
you.
That one hurt. That one
Yeah.
hurt. Yeah.
Yeah, that was but it's those moments that really bring things to life too. So
Mhm,
in
mhm.
the creative way, that was a great moment.
That's
And the
so.
director's like, fuck yeah, because that's there. You, James, just got hit in the nuts.
Yeah, yeah.
That's not cool.
That's the balance, and
The
that's the thing
creative
that I
sacrifice
even.
maybe wasn't
I
worth
mean,
it.
I don't know, and honestly, and this is another piece that I think about all the time, where it's like, well, I personally am more interested in art that is pushing boundaries. And so, like, I don't know, like, maybe we should be consenting to that a little more, but it's like, I mean, not even maybe, like, we should be, but it's like, I don't necessarily see the problem in a little bit more aggressive art, and so it's like,
Mm.
I don't know, I go back and forth with that stuff all the time, and I don't know, day by day
Well,
I land differently.
the difference there is that you did not elect to have someone
Mm.
hit you in the nuts.
That's the difference. Exactly,
I
exactly.
did that in a
Yeah,
moment of impulse.
yeah,
Yeah, so there's the difference. If you
yeah,
choose to do something and go into it and like that's different. Like
yeah,
when you're doing a fight scene, things are going to happen. There was
yeah.
no fight scene in that moment. It
Mhm.
just happened. So
Yeah,
there's the difference.
yeah.
And on that, nobody wants to watch anybody's story about how comfortable they are.
Yeah,
Who
exactly.
cares, right?
Exactly.
No,
Yeah.
people want to the willingness to engage in any piece of storytelling is about being willing to step into someone else's discomfort. And
Mm-hmm.
to do that, you have to be really willing to be uncomfortable,
Yeah.
even when it's like just the act of the physical intensity of it is uncomfortable. You need to be cool with that. And then all the emotional stuff, that's about going into discomfort. And there's this trend of making sure everyone feels safe and everyone feels comfortable. Now, there's a space for that. That could be a
Yeah.
container
Yeah.
where creative work can happen.
Mhm.
And I think that container is often abused,
Mhm.
and especially now. And so it's not all about everyone feeling safe and about everyone being comfortable. It's about being safe,
Yeah.
knowing you're safe, and then just go for it and stop being selfish.
Yeah. Yeah. I do
And
think
be
that there is
uncomfortable.
I think that there is a funny I think you're onto something with the idea of being safe versus feeling safe, you know? And I think that there is more to it. And I think, I do appreciate the conversations that are happening, and I appreciate the pushes that are happening, but I do still think nobody has landed on the answer. You know what I mean? Like, I think it's still a conversation in process. I don't think we have anything settled yet, and I think we need to be pushing it more, because I think it's been a bit of a rubber band of like, it's a laissez-faire, do whatever you want, and then that leads to certain abuse, and then it's we're really strict and we're really oversight, and that leads to a type of abuse. And there needs to be it's the middle path,
Yeah,
like
and
we need a
that's
balance,
happening.
right?
That's happening
Exactly.
naturally. I
Yeah,
mean, it's going to. You got to really
it has to.
try
Yeah,
something on for a while until
yeah,
and let all the parts that don't fit fall away with
exactly.
experience and failures, and then
Yeah,
keep the bits that do. And of course, that makes sense.
yeah,
So the conversation's been very important,
yeah,
and it's time to embody it.
yeah, yeah. That's
but
that's exactly it.
but
Yeah.
let a lot of it go.
Yeah,
Thank you very
yeah,
much.
yeah.
Yeah.
I had this other thought. I think the other piece, and again, it's so funny because it's like so much of it is like, it's not how you showed up, it's how I showed up and how I was perceiving the world. And I think this is a really interesting thing to talk about, is this idea of like, I was really uh un unconfident, right? I lacked confidence, and to see someone like you walking around confident and believing in yourself and making a choice and doing it, you know um what I don't want to say what I should have done. What would have been a more effective choice would have been being inspired by that, and instead I decided to be intimidated by that, and I decided to, right, and I think that that's a very common impulse for a lot of people, is they see someone doing something that they wish they were doing, and so instead of saying, oh, they can do it, so I totally can, instead the impulse is, well, fuck that guy. Why don't we tear him down? Why don't we make him feel as bad as I'm feeling right now? And I hate that. I hate that impulse. I despise that impulse, and I know that is a part of me, and I know that is a thing that I have done many times and likely will continue to. But it is a thing that I've tried to recognize in myself, and I've tried to shift over the years.
It's so
Is
common, and it'll come
yeah,
back in other ways, right?
that's just it.
You'll gain mastery over it in this way, and then
Mm.
it'll come back in another with a new mask on and be like,
Yep.
haha, didn't
Yep.
recognize me, did you?
Oh my god, though. Oh my god. That's something I talk about with my therapist all the time, where I'm like, we'll be talking about like a new issue, and I'll stop and I'll be like, oh fuck's sake, we're literally talking about the same fucking thing, aren't we? And he's kind of
Yeah.
like, yeah, right?
Tricked you.
Right? But
I'm back.
he always says, like, isn't that so incredible? Doesn't it prove how incredible our brain is? That it's like, oh no, you're caught on to me. I have to now make up a brand new character to scare you, right? Exactly. It's like mustache at your signifiers, right? It's incredible, like it's
Yeah,
really, it's inspiring. It's also really fucking frustrating to
it's
be like,
hilarious.
right? Exactly.
It's
Yeah.
really fun and
Yep.
funny.
Yep.
I find myself laughing at inappropriate times
Oh yeah.
because of the comedy.
Yep.
Right? It's great. It's
Yep.
great, and it's fucking terrible.
Yep.
Like, see, I can laugh when it's me or it's other adults, and I am now a father.
Yeah.
When my children, I've yet to be really truly tested in that regard, but
Sure.
I'm going. That's a disguise it's going to pop in with, and I'm going to be mad when it
Yep.
does, and
Yep.
I'm going to have to figure that out
Yeah.
as it unfolds, so I don't demonstrate to my children how to be an asshole when things aren't going well,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Because that's super available.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
'cause I am so protective of my children. But
Yeah.
the best way that I can be a good dad to them is to enjoy their mistakes
Mm.
and to be like,
Cool.
and to show them, they're like, hey, it's gonna happen, dude.
Yeah.
Chill out, know
Yeah.
what you can do, and do that, right?
Yeah.
And I am, when it comes to physical stuff, my son's a stuntman, and he gets hurt all the time. But now
Yeah.
he's tough. He's
Yeah.
4, but
Yeah.
he's tough.
Yeah.
And I think his little sister, who's 1, is gonna be a boss.
I love it. I love
She
it.
prefers to roar than she does to talk. And she runs around and stomps.
Yeah.
But she is such a cool
Yeah.
dude. Yeah. So
You
yeah.
know,
Anyway, that's the trick. That's where I know it's gonna really get it under my ribs.
yeah. Yeah. So that really leads me into one of my next one of the big questions is this idea of, like as we've been talking about, and as anybody who even has a passing exposure to social media sees, like the world is really complicated right now. It's really fucked up. There's lots of good and lots of bad, and it's really easy to get swept up in these cycles of fear and negativity. And as I've been talking a lot about on the show recently, is this idea of like it's good to be aware. It's good to be informed. It's good to be up to date. It's also good to know what your capacity is and what your limit is, and to know that it is okay to take care of yourself and step back sometimes. And it's that whole thing of it's the put your own air mask on first, right?
Yep.
So you can't just be online all the time screaming, and like that's not going to help you. It's not going to help anybody else. And I'm curious, for you, what is something, you know, I frame it as what's something that's giving you hope these days. But it's really this idea of like, how are you being gentle with yourself, I guess, is another way of putting it.
There are few things that are battering at me and making me feel any sense of despair. And there are so many things that give me hope. Knowing that is really like being aware of that is the key. And it's like one big stupid fucking thing will come around and well, yeah, it's a big giant and a whole forest of wonderful good things, right? They're all operating on a smaller level. Many, 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 many good, 1 or 2 big bad.
Yeah.
And of course it throws a big shadow and it's big and scary, and that's always the way, and it's real. It's not, it's not, it's the answer is not in diminishing the threat.
Yes.
But it's in realizing the wealth of strength operating quietly and not making a big loud scene, right? But continually at work and having faith in that, but not just faith, being, well, I don't want to get into I have to step up. I have to be involved. I cannot do it on social media. To me, it is empty. I cannot possibly be effective there, I think.
Yeah.
It's just not for me. So what gives me hope is that everywhere I look, I find commonality. And I can, there's great strength in that. I don't think that any threat, real threat, will be unchallenged. And I don't know. I don't want to predict anything, but I believe, no, I'm aware that there has been a lot of learning happening over the last 20 years. And I think it's really time to embody it in a synthesized way, because we've become a more educated species, and that's useless until you apply it.
Yeah.
So And that's really fucking scary and really uncomfortable. I don't want to be bothered with it, really. I would much
Yeah.
rather continue going about what I'm familiar with. But
Yep.
what I'm familiar with suffocates me if I
Yeah.
stay there very long, right? It's
Yep.
just atrophy, and you get weak and you get stupid and then it's very scary and very difficult to move and change. But the same is true so many times. I mean, everything that is rewarding requires effort and is uncomfortable,
Hmm.
right? And that's what
Yeah.
brings life. So we want life, we want change, we want health, and what we're seeing, particularly down south,
Sure.
and here, I mean, there's many factions here that would welcome the same thing, but
Yeah.
it is the dying of a dinosaur, and it is
It is.
thrashing, and it
Yep.
is angry,
Yep.
but the problem is it also has some roots that are valid, right? So that's why it takes root, and things have gone way too far. So people who would be absolutely against this
Yep.
have become like, well, at least it's not what I'm been hearing, and I'm
Yeah.
fucking tired of, and I do not want to hear any more of. Right? People, the good side has lost allies by being far too extreme, and so. And I do mean that, the good side.
Yeah.
We need to be an accepting and wonderful people. It's really
Yeah.
easy because it's not about being a feminist. It's just not being an asshole. Being the
Sure.
opposite.
Sure.
Like, you can be sexist or you can be homophobic.
Yeah.
It's not about it's not progressive to not be those things.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
just the bar.
Yes.
That's just
exactly
being a
right.
human.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
That's where we have to wake up every morning without effort.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's largely there. I don't know though. I'm surrounded by interesting, intelligent people, and it's become clear to me that a lot of people fucking aren't.
Yeah. I mean, that's my problem, is that it's like, and I do hate using these words, but it's like, I don't know if I would go so far as to be like, so many people are stupid. It's that so many people are comfortable and are scared of being uncomfortable, and that leads to complacency,
Well, then
and
give them
that
something to
looks like
see.
stupidity. Well, that's just it, right? Exactly.
People follow strength.
Mm-hmm.
People follow conviction.
Mm-hmm.
People follow something that inspires them.
Mm-hmm.
And when the most inspirational thing is nothing changing and not being uncomfortable, well, a lot of people will do that too, right? But if you just want to, I don't have the answer, James, but I think that it's time for people who've been thinking and growing a lot to really wear it.
Mm-hmm.
And that doesn't need to be on a big public platform. It can just be in your everyday experience. And when you see something stupid happening, talk about it to the person doing it in the moment, and try to remember that they're also your allies. They might not know it at the moment, but and the more strength you have, like the more you cultivate your strength and believe in your strength and know it, that is unavoidable to everyone that you come in contact with at any given moment.
Yeah.
Right? And we're all going to feel weak at different times. That's fine. But realize that you're actually enormously powerful. And that we all are. It's not special about you or me. It's just like it's the common ground.
Yeah.
But you have to be it to be in the world. Or you can just exist and move along with the tide and with the current, and it will sweep you away.
There's no avoiding it. Yeah.
It's very fucking convenient. Yeah. And we are in a time of convenience where being comfortable is number one.
Yeah.
And it's what everybody wants. Convenience is king. And as long as we keep those conveniences, we will let all manner of atrocities happen under our noses.
That's right.
And I am part of that, and I hate it.
Yeah. I think about that all the time, actually. That's something that that's the last couple therapy sessions have been about, this idea of, obviously we don't all bear the same level of responsibility, but we all do bear responsibility for where the world is right now. We have all participated, and we all need to take accountability for how we showed up to contribute to the situation as it is, and obviously, like, I bear a different kind of responsibility to somebody like a politician or whoever it might be, but we all have participated in the same system, and it's okay to say it's partially my fault. There's no weakness, there's no capitulation, that's just a reality. And I think until we stop avoiding that, we can't actually figure out what the next game is. Because the game that they play is who are we going to blame today? Who are we going to point our fingers at? Who are we going to say it's their fault? And you're playing that same thing by saying, well, it's actually your fault. You're just going a little circle there,
Yeah.
So it's like, what's the, how about we step away from that game and we play something new and we try something new? That's where I'm trying to get to, right?
Yeah. I think we need to stop catastrophizing so much because it makes us numb.
Yeah.
And I think it's
black and white thinking. It's literally a form of disassociation.
There we go.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Right.
Wonderful. Well said.
Yeah.
And realizing that usually there isn't a bad guy in the room.
Yeah.
Until there is. And that's kind of the philosophy that's carried with me from martial arts training since I was a child. Mm-hmm. Usually a situation can be met and with confidence and strength. Mm-hmm. Real conflict can be avoided. But in the moment that real conflict arises, like the fucking bad guy, because there is evil in the world.
Yeah.
It is real and it will manifest. Always. Every generation.
You have to be able to stop it. You have
then
to
you
stop
just
it.
jump in.
Yeah.
And you kick it in the fucking face.
Yeah. They're the ones you elbow in the nuts, right?
Yeah.
Right?
That's right. And this is not a time to be soft. This is a time to be strong. And it's a time to recognize your strength. Otherwise, you can never fucking do it. And you'll eat yourself up because of that. Because you know you could be. Yeah. You know you can be. I know I can be better than I am today. And I must. I must.
I mean, that's a tenet of the DBT therapy I do, which is, it says everybody is trying their best and we can do better. Right?
Great.
And it's all about, like, just keep pushing, keep on pushing. Don't rest on your laurels. Don't get comfy. Get a little further.
Well, that's delicious.
It's the best, right?
I need more therapy.
Right.
Those are the conversations being had. That's
everyone
good.
does, right? Everyone needs it, right?
Yeah.
Trev, I am cognizant of the time. I'm watching the time here, and I want to make sure we wrap up enough before you get invaded by your little baby force.
Oh, they don't invade; they come home.
Right. Yeah. But I am gonna put aside the question of friendship.
Sure.
And because I think we really tapped on a couple of, you know what? Okay, scratch that. We're gonna do it quick.
Great.
I would like to know, what does it mean to you to be a friend?
To be a friend and to have friends, celebrate the wonderful nuances and get to know them of people as they are. Right? And everyone's flawed, everyone's crazy, and the older we get, the crazier we get, right? So learning to be like cool with that, but also calling people out on their shit.
Yep. Being
curious about what matters to them, right? And checking in about that. And like, if I really don't care about what matters to somebody, well, I'm not going to be really able to meet them as a friend, right? I can like them and I can be interested in them from afar, but I'm not going to invest my time and energy. And accepting that, I think, is really the best friendship we're going to have. And that's okay. And that might change with time. So accepting that. So I'm not stretching myself too thin. I'm not exhausted and feeling, what's the word? I don't resent them wanting my energy ever, right?
Yep.
So knowing when I have space, that's important to be a friend. Being cool when they don't have space, giving them their space because they're their own person, they have their own life, and I get to be in an intimate place with them. That is a treasure. So recognizing that and not taking it for granted, which I do with the closest people, right? I have to remind myself, like, I am surrounded by brilliant people on many, many, many levels. I am staggered by the beauty of the people that I get to be around on a regular basis. And then not even considering the people that I don't get to be around, but that I get to know. Holy shit. Right? So that's overwhelming. I can't possibly love them enough. But I only have so much to give. So knowing that's what makes me a better friend. But taking the opportunities to really be curious and love them in whatever way I can in the time. But I think social media is a trap because it's just too many tendrils of energy going too many places, and then I'm just overwhelmed. And I can't possibly
regulate. you know,
Yeah, I
you
can't
can't
show up for
regulate it,
anything
right?
when I'm
Exactly.
so overwhelmed.
Exactly.
Yeah.
When you're going, you know, a cat video to a bombing to whatever, you know, it's like you can't regulate. There's no way to know what's coming next. So you're just in a
No.
constant panic, right?
That's
Like
like
it's
being God and having your mind open to everything all at
right.
once. Well, we can't fucking handle it. No.
Yeah.
I am made
Yeah.
to make a little fire in a cave
Yep.
and smell what's on the wind today, and that's it.
Yep.
Really, and love my family, and like,
Yep.
what was that sound? Right? That's really me at peak capacity. And
Yep.
then maybe I'm going to write something down.
Yeah.
I'm going to
Yeah.
learn something today.
Yep.
Right? But really, I'm just an animal. I'm an
Yeah.
animal with an infinite capacity, which is
Yep.
fucking cool. But there's
Yep.
the duality again, right? Which is the cosmic wonderful joke
Yeah.
that makes our lives hilarious and fucking terrible and wonderful. So, yeah, and just being with that and enjoying it with ease, I think I think
Yeah.
that's what really. But friendship, taking time.
I could listen to you talk for hours. Sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Ah,
Yeah. Yeah.
that's very kind of you. I'm enjoying this conversation very much.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So, just hey, how's it going? Let's chat a little. Come over and play a game. Let's do something silly. Now
Yeah.
tell me about something that really fucking matters to you, and I'm gonna really listen.
Mhm.
And then I'm gonna remember that, and then we're gonna talk about this again, right? And then hey, let's go do something fun and silly. Have you talked to my children? These things matter to me.
Yeah.
These are the things I care about. What
Yeah.
am I curious about? What are you curious about? Let's talk about those things. What's testing you today? Let's find something, or let's push some boundaries, dude.
Yeah.
Those are kind of the words that just kind of have to be in a tiny little pocket of presence
Mhm.
in friendship, right?
Mhm.
And also be ready for surprises because they're going to happen.
Yeah.
I don't have a clear answer, but that's just kind of the vibe.
You said so much and I appreciate it. Like I feel like you got so much in there, so compressed, and I think everybody needs to go back and parse that out because there's a lot of really good stuff in there, and I agree wholeheartedly with all of it.
Yay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Of course you do. Yeah. You've been thinking about this a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh,
You know,
that's wonderful. You must have learned so many things from so many people, James.
I'm trying, man. I like to think I have. It's funny. I don't get many opportunities to put it into practice in the way that I'd like to, and that's something that I've been thinking about as we've been talking. Is this idea of like I've been very much in a theoretical state for a while, and I've been trying to get more into the practice phase, but it's hard. It's a weird, Vancouver's a weird city for it, but it's also just like everybody's traumatized, like everybody's having a rough time, and kind of finding, it's sort of that question of what we talked about way earlier about the idea of finding your community and finding your network and finding the right people to be around, and I've had a couple false starts over the last couple of years where I kind of thought I found my people and then hadn't, and so I'm kind of back at the drawing board again, but
Well, I think it's important to acknowledge where there's wounds and where there's difficulty, but you only grow from your strength.
yeah
So really making that where you start your day,
yeah
acknowledging when shit goes awry, because it's going
yeah
to, right? But that's okay.
yeah
It's not okay. It is okay. It
it
is and it's
is.
not. The
It has
duality
to be
again.
because it is,
It has
like
to
it's
be. We got to step
yeah
up. Like
yeah
the human race has never been as comfortable and has had as much ease as it has today. And I bet there are a lot more psychiatric problems today than ever
yeah
before as well. That
yeah
says something. We're
yeah
not made to be comfortable. But we
mm.
got to rise out of our misery or out of, because we can wallow forever.
Yeah.
And my mind is a labyrinth. If I'm
Hmm.
too in my head, I am completely fucked.
Same.
So
Yep.
yeah, of course, and that is the creative mind, right?
Yeah.
So I got to get in my body.
Yeah.
I got to do stuff, right? And that brings me into the present. In the present, I am free. I'm powerful. I am useless anywhere else, really. I mean, I can't imagine the future, and I can't. The past is
It's gone.
it's full of stories that
Yeah.
may or may not be true. I don't know.
That's
right?
just it, right?
And
Exactly.
it's a
Yeah.
waste. It's a waste when the
Yeah.
present is a gift. So fucking show up. I
Yeah.
don't. That's where when I'm not well and I feel like I'm I'm rooted in past hurts and whatnot. I need to get here and now. So when you say that about everyone's traumatized in Vancouver, well, it also is a place that really welcomes beauty and creativity. You are a poet.
Yeah.
All these things that are banging off in your head, there are
Yeah.
no rules in poems, man. And we
Yeah.
need poetry. I don't appreciate poetry, but I think it might be the frontier of
Yeah.
like where really cool communication can happen. And
Yeah.
it can't just be people snapping their fingers on a stage that a bunch of people who already like poetry go to. It's got to be something else.
Yeah.
Like some Banksy shit that like makes
Yeah.
people think and is like, wow, what
Yeah.
happened? That some guerrilla poetry that just
Yeah.
occurs.
Yeah.
That's what theater is supposed to be. It's
Right.
fucking not.
No.
It's not at
But it
all.
could be. But it could be. It
Well,
has been in the past.
it'll
You
come
know?
around
Like,
again,
yeah,
right? And I'd
exactly.
like
Yeah.
to be there when that happens.
Same.
And by the way, I've barely touched theater in years. I get to do a few select things now and then because I take time when I can, but I steal that time.
Right.
It's film and TV and video games now.
Right.
Because it's so concise, right? And it pays well. And you can be busy all year in theater and be broke.
Yep.
Which is backwards.
Yeah. I agree.
So backwards.
Wholeheartedly. Yeah. Trevor, we could talk literally for hours, and I'm already like, okay, so we're gonna have to get you back on because we're gonna need to just like keep going with all this.
Sure, and we could just be friends.
I mean, this is the other piece. I like sharing. Like one of the treasures that I've discovered through this show has been the opportunity to show the world the people I know and to be able to be like, look at these incredible people who are in my life. Like, aren't I so lucky and aren't they amazing? Right. And so like, I like to get people who inspire me and who challenge me and who just sort of like rock me. I like to get them on, and I like sharing these conversations. And at the same time too, I also recognize I lean onto that thing where it's like I could also just be a person. I could also just hang out, right?
Yeah.
but and I think we will do that. I think we will do that going forward. Souk isn't that far, but
yes, it is.
I guess it kind of is. It kind of is. Especially I don't have a car, so it kind of is.
Might as well be Australia.
Fair. But before we wrap up, I do want to say just thank you. Like, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with me, and this has been such a pleasure. It's been a long time coming, and an even longer time coming in the sort of the sense of just getting to talk again and getting to pick your brain again.
Let's talk more. Yeah, I'd love to.
I'd love
to come on again. And yeah, thank you for providing the opportunity. It's great, and I'd love to talk some more. That'd be really nice.
Excellent. Just the very last thing before we wrap up, I always like to leave, or I guess I should ask: is there anywhere you'd like listeners to find you? Or do you want to stay mysterious, or do you want listeners to find you anywhere on the internet, anywhere like that?
No, I'm completely boring online.
Love it.
Yeah, and I prefer to stay that way. I'm
fabulous. Yeah. Very last thing, I always love to leave listeners with a little actionable thing they can try out. So, what is one thing everyone could try doing this week to be a more effective friend, either to themselves or to their community?
Just check in with your friends. Check in with your strong friends and ask how they're like. Are they happy? What's going on?
Yeah.
Because people, rightly so, check in with the folks who are having a hard time.
Right.
But everyone's having some kind of a hard time.
Yeah.
And it's just nice. The people I think who are generally perceived to be doing well because they're jolly often really benefit tremendously from just a check-in. It has a lot of power.
Yep.
Just to say, oh, I'm not the provider of strength and of attention. I also I'm able to receive it. So I think that's a valid thing.
That's wonderful. I think that's spot on, and I think that's a really powerful reminder. I mean, my brain immediately goes to people like Robin Williams and all that, and it's like the people who are often laughing loudest are often the ones who need the most help, so right. So, thank you so much, Trevor. This has been just such a pleasure, and yeah, I really appreciate it. I don't have any
James.
You're very, very welcome. I don't have any kind of like sign off for the show, so I always just end up kind of being like, well, Thank
Okay.
you. Bye.
Yep. All right. Yep. I'm curious about all the things in the background there. Maybe we can talk about that another time.
Yeah.
It looks like some cool shit that
It's very complex. Yeah.
I like it.
And that's it. Thank you one more time to Trevor for coming on the show. You know, there's something really special about reconnecting with somebody after so many years and discovering that not only have they grown into this fascinating, thoughtful person, but that they've also maintained that kind of magnetic energy that drew you to them in the first place. I feel like an episode like this is really the kind of conversation that reminds me of why I started this podcast in the first place. If you enjoyed this episode as much as I did, please consider subscribing wherever you get your podcasts. Share it with a friend who might maybe need a reminder about the power of genuine connection. And if you're feeling particularly generous, why not leave us a 5-star review? It helps other people find the episodes and join the conversation. So any little bit helps. You can find me on Instagram and TikTok at FriendlessPod. If you have any listener questions you want answered on a future solo episode, email me, friendlesspod@gmail.com. And if you want more Friendless content, be sure to sign up for the monthly Friendless Substack newsletter. It's chock full of incredible, useful goodies that you're going to love, and it's completely free. But that's going to do it for me this week, so let's wrap things up here. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope to catch you back here next week with a brand new episode. But hey, I'm not going to worry about that right now, and neither should you, because as always, that is then, and this is now. So for now, I'll just say I love you. I hope you keep showing up. I hope you keep checking in on your friends. And I hope you take good care of yourself. Fun and safety, sweet peas.